Ignition sequence starts.
Good morning, Happy New Year, and welcome to this view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The men and women on console in this room are working with the men and women of Expedition 66 as they kick off another year of science research on a one-of-a-kind laboratory in space. Commander Anton Shkaplerov and his American, Russian, and German crewmates have kicked off 2022 with a focus on science support, while they work to keep their home in space in good shape to support its mission for years to come.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Kayla LaFrance. As we say hello to the new year, the International Space Station is setting its sights to many years ahead. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson announced that the Biden-Harris administration is committed to the extension of operations of the space station through 2030. This will enable continuation of groundbreaking research being conducted by NASA and our international partners on the orbiting laboratory through the rest of this decade. In a statement posted to nasa.gov, Nelson said that the International Space Station is a beacon of peaceful international scientific collaboration and for more than 20 years has returned enormous scientific, educational, and technological developments to benefit humanity. One of the current developments aboard the space station is the manufacturing of superalloys. Superalloys are metal alloys with incredible heat-resistant properties. The turbine superalloy casting module is testing a commercial manufacturing device that processes heat-resistant alloy parts in microgravity. The research of these superalloys could improve the performance of materials under extremely high temperatures, such as metals and turbine engines for aerospace and power generators. So how's your New Year's resolution coming along? Well, we have a resolution that will be easy to follow. We invite you to keep up to date on the latest news about the International Space Station this year by connecting with us on one of these social media platforms. You can find updates from the ISS on Twitter at @space_station. And for the latest news about research and science on the orbiting laboratory, head to @ISS_research. You can get a daily on-orbit status report by visiting our space station blog at blogs.nasa.gov, and you can follow the International Space Station on Facebook and on Instagram. Do you want the latest NASA news in your inbox? Sign up for one of the NASA newsletters. Explore a wide list of topics like station science, space biology, and astronaut photography of our planet. That's Space to Ground for this week. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep sending us your questions using the hashtag AskNASA. We'll see you next week.
The 7 members of Expedition 66 finished 2021 in space, but they represent fewer than 1/3 of the total number of human beings who floated aboard the world's orbiting outpost last year. If you like those numbers, you're going to love these. Counting down now to the International Space Station Year in Review in 3, 2, 1. probably noticed in that feature, there was a section on the groundbreaking science done on the International Space Station in 2021. But that ain't the half of it, as expedition crew members from 5 different countries supported research in dozens of experiments last year that took advantage of the absence of gravity to learn things that couldn't be learned here on Earth. Take a look now at the best science photos from the station during 2021. The astronauts who arrived at the station in November are about a third of the way through their mission, which has a big science plan of its own. Take a listen as Rajachari, Tom Marshburn, Kayla Barron, and Matthias Maurer describe their plans for science research and advancements in the commercial use of space, while contributing to preparations for humans to explore the moon in a few years.
I'm Kayla Barron, a mission specialist.
Hi, I'm ESA astronaut Matthias Maurer. I will be mission specialist.
My name is Tom Marshburn. I'm the pilot.
I'm Rajachari, the commander of the NASA SpaceX Crew 3 mission to the International Space Station.
So the Crew 3 mission is on the NASA SpaceX commercial space vehicle to the International Space Station. We will be working on the International Space Station for around 6 months, doing lots of experiments, lots of science.
And Crew Dragon is one of our newest ways to get there. There have been Soyuzes that have flown to the International Space Station with Crew. The Space Shuttle flew to the International Space Station, and now the Crew Dragon is taking human beings to the International Space Station. So we've partnered with SpaceX in the Commercial Crew Program. They design, build, and operate these vehicles that take us, transport us to the International Space Station so that we can contribute to the amazing work that we're doing up there.
Yeah, it's exciting to fly on a new spaceship for sure, and a new design of a spaceship. But I'm looking forward more to flying with 3 people that haven't flown in space before. This is a very unique crew. They are incredibly operationally savvy already. So what I try to do is, if there's any gaps in their knowledge of how they're going to feel, how they're going to operate, what is the zero gravity going to be like, how that might challenge our expectations for what we can get done. So you really feel like you've become a resident of space, a resident of zero-G. And you start to feel like you're getting an idea of how this works. Every day is a long series of problem solving. You got to figure out where to put your pencil, where to put your drink if you have it. So maybe 10,000 times a day you're solving little problems like this. And when that becomes fluid, then you really feel like you can be efficient and get a lot of work done. And there's a lot of work to get done on the space station right now.
We spend a lot of our time training in Dragon because that's a really dynamic phase of the mission, but it's just such a tiny fraction. The whole point is going to the space station and doing some incredible work up there. So our time on the space station is spent, one, keeping the space station healthy. It's been up there for 20 years. There's a lot of systems that need maintenance and upgrades and operators there to keep them working well, but we also do some incredible science. The space station is a national laboratory orbiting around the Earth, and it's a really, really unique environment.
Once we arrive on the International Space Station, we will run a lot of experiments. I'm a material science engineer, and so my focus will be lots of experiments in the material science domain, but also life sciences will be very important.
There's all kinds of research going on a daily basis that lead to just fundamental changes in the way we understand how our world works. I will definitely be the eyes, ears, hands, and the actuator for the experiments that help lead to the science, the discoveries that can push our species further, both beyond the planet and just understand and operate on our Earth even better.
One of the great legacies of the space station is not just going to be the science, but very importantly, the international cooperation. This is one of the first, certainly today's perhaps most prominent, international cooperation for exploration. It's not for survival, it's not for competition in the marketplace, it is for just exploration.
I think we're now about to enter a new era of human spaceflight. In the past, astronauts flew to the International Space Station to do purely science. Now the station will become more and more commercial. There are commercial experiments on one side, but there are also commercial astronauts who come up to run maybe their own science programs, but also to enjoy just being up in space, to experience space, and to convey this message, the fascination of space, to all the people on the ground.
In addition to helping perform science, the International Space Station crew members are science when they serve as guinea pigs in experiments that are designed to help get human beings ready for future missions, like Artemis program missions back to the moon, and after that, missions out into the solar system. Scientists are busy exploring ways to provide those future astronauts with the nutrition they'll need to stay healthy when the time comes for them to leave the home planet on journeys that will last for years.
A successful mission starts with nutrition. Presented by Science at NASA. Centuries ago, large wooden ships explored the 7 seas. But often a ship that began its voyage with a crew of hundreds could return with tens. The silent killer? Scurvy. A disease that occurs when there's a lack of vitamin C in the diet. On the other extreme, explorers of the North and South Poles could fall ill by eating the liver of polar bears and seals, exposing them to toxic levels of vitamin A. Centuries of exploration have taught us there is a vital relationship between a successful exploration mission and balanced nutrition. And nowhere is that lesson more vital than in the extreme vastness of outer space. NASA nutritionist and manager for nutritional biochemistry Scott M. Smith, Ph.D. notes, "We're studying nutrition aboard the International Space Station, or ISS, by tracking what astronauts eat and how their body mass and health change over time in microgravity. Menus that lack variety and busy schedules can impact the astronauts' dietary intake, and insufficient intake leads to weight or mass loss, bone and muscle loss, cardiovascular effects, and more. The foods on ISS are all shelf-stable. There is no refrigerator or freezer for food. Right now, we're lucky because we're able to deliver fresh fruits and vegetables to the station. But think about the first human trip to Mars and back, which may take 30 months or more. How do we maintain optimal nutrition for our astronauts over that much time? The challenge is clear. In space, the astronauts' environment impacts their nutritional needs. Astronauts have higher radiation exposure, higher atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide, low humidity, and microgravity, which can all have effects on their health. Having a balanced, nutritious diet is important to help counteract spaceflight effects on the body. These can have short-term consequences, like on mood and performance and kidney stone risk, and raises long-term concerns such as bone and muscle loss, cardiovascular degradation, impairment of the immune function, and vision changes. Smith says the foods we give them will be of utmost importance for counteracting these effects, which is why we need to find ways to keep the food palatable, nutritious, and safe, even after it's stored for months or years. Keeping an eye on intake will be important too. Currently on ISS, astronauts use an iPad app to track intake, and this gives them real-time information on their diet. The nutrition team and flight surgeons also watch this information to help provide feedback to astronauts. This attention to astronaut nutrition is also paying dividends for those on Earth. Smith notes that astronauts on board the space station have already delivered a plethora of nutritional data that can be applied to all people. He says we've gained new insights into how nutrition can have effects on all human systems, including dietary effects on bone loss, which affects the elderly in particular, and how to better treat that condition and others. Of course, says Smith, a simple start for people on Earth to maintain optimal health is the same as it's been for centuries. Keep eating your fruits and veggies. For more science from the International Space Station, go to www.nasa.gov/ISS-science. For more appetizing information about space exploration, visit science.nasa.gov.
One major goal of the International Space Station program is to develop the tools and techniques that we'll need to be successful in the next stage of human exploration of space, starting with the Artemis program and the missions to the moon that are coming up soon. The folks at NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Projects Division at the Goddard Space Flight Center have worked up a number of these new tools that have been tested in the space station to help draw up the blueprint for our sustained human presence in space.
The International Space Station has been providing us with groundbreaking science and discoveries for over 2 decades. When you think of humans as a spacefaring species, you may think of it as something limited to the future or science fiction. But in fact, for more than 20 years, humans have maintained a continuous presence in space via the space station. During that time, we have reaped the benefits of the research and science conducted on board. We have also managed to learn and develop engineering capabilities on the prime real estate outside.
Some of the really unique things we've been able to do on the ISS include things around robotics and autonomy, and especially with a new national capability, an initiative we have going on around on-orbit satellite servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. I would tell you that the ISS was really at the forefront of us starting this activity.
There is still so much left to learn and so much technology left to be tested in this incredibly unique place.
Really, the ISS as an orbiting lab provides the agency with the opportunity to test things in a microgravity environment. The main difference between terrestrial Earth testing and ISS is exactly that microgravity factor.
Using station to practice capabilities and see how technologies will look and work in space is comparable to having a dress rehearsal before a big play. It provides us with the opportunity to learn, adapt, and tweak things as needed to drive down mission risk and increase the chance of success. This is especially important when you consider that many of these technologies and capabilities are things that have never been done before. Things like robotically refueling satellites in space that weren't designed to be refueled. NASA has big plans for sustainable exploration at the Moon, Mars, and beyond. First on the docket is Artemis, for which NASA plans to send the first woman and the next man to the Moon. In addition to testing technologies, Station also provides NASA with the blueprint for long-term human habitats in space. From learning about how human bodies adapt to a space environment in the long term, to discovering how to grow food and more, the orbiting lab provides invaluable lessons. As part of the Artemis program, Gateway will be an outpost orbiting the Moon, similar to the way Station orbits the Earth. Like Station, it will act as a destination for astronaut expeditions and science investigations. Unlike Station, it could serve as a port for deep space transportation, such as landers en route to the lunar surface or spacecraft embarking to destinations beyond the Moon. Gateway is a critical component of NASA's Artemis program and is possible thanks to strides made with Station.
So many technologies are required for us to sustain presence both lunar and then eventually when we go onto Mars. But with the Artemis program especially, and the lunar surface initiatives we're looking at now involve advanced power capabilities, advanced propulsion, advanced communications, trying to go to optical communications from radio frequency, entry, descent, and landing of large scale mass. And again, the robotics and autonomy I'll keep going back to, those as well, but many different technological challenges, exist and are needed for us to be able to sustain those. What we're doing now will determine the future of what the agency's capabilities are.
The International Space Station offers endless possibilities in the future to continue to advance our identity as a spacefaring species.
International Space Station crew members spend some of their time on station maintenance, some on science activities, and some of it sharing the experience of flying in space with folks on Earth. And that includes students studying the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. In this demonstrations video, astronaut Shane Kimbrough describes how crew members use their senses in space and how those senses adapt to being in weightlessness.
Hello, my name is Shane Kimbrough, and I'm an astronaut living and working up here on the International Space Station. In this demonstration, I'll be talking about the 5 main senses we have and how we use them up here on the station. Let's go check them out.
As humans, we have 5 senses that let us observe the world around us. These senses are sight, taste, smell, hearing, and touch. Our senses help us determine whether or not we like something, but they also warn us if something is wrong. Sometimes our senses pick up very good things, like the smell of fresh-baked cookies or the taste of yummy pizza. Other times, our senses may warn us of danger, like the smell of something burning or the feeling of something hot. Let's go through the 5 senses and talk about what we may observe with them up here on the station.
Sight. The sense of sight allows us to see the world around us, or in my case, space. Here on the station, one way we use our sense of sight is to see different experiments we are working on, so we can report the results back to Earth. Some astronauts have noticed that their sight changes a little after living in microgravity aboard the station. Scientists are helping to fix this by conducting research up here on astronauts like me.
Taste. Our sense of taste comes from our tongue, and it tells our brain what kind of food and nutrients we are putting into our body. We can tell when something is super sweet or very salty because of this. Because of fluid shifts on the space station, sometimes our noses can be a bit stuffy and it can be harder to taste food. So lots of us love to add hot sauce to many of our meals to amplify the taste.
Smell.
Just like with taste, sometimes our sense of smell can change up here in microgravity as the liquids in our body move around. Once our bodies have adjusted to microgravity, the space station has a very distinct smell.
Hearing.
In terms of hearing inside the space station, there is constant noise coming from the different machines that keep our air flowing and the experiments running. Our sleeping quarters block some of the noise, though, so we're able to get a good night's sleep each night. What do you think you would hear outside the space station? Well, you better be wearing a spacesuit, so you'd be hearing the fan noises inside the spacesuit. But if somehow you were able to be outside of that spacesuit, you would hear absolutely nothing, because sound cannot travel in space, because it has no air to travel through.
Touch.
Usually when you think of touch, you think of observing how things feel with your fingers. Since we are floating, we are constantly having to touch and grab onto objects, either using our hands or our feet. You can use your feet to walk up here if you carefully hook them under handrails as you go. But this is pretty challenging, so we like to use our hands more than our feet while we're up here. We will often use our hands to move along and carry objects with our legs. Thanks for learning about the 5 main senses with me today. Start thinking about your 5 senses and how they help you observe and adapt to your environment down on Earth. See you next time.
If you want another look at any of the stories we showed you today, go over to YouTube and Facebook at those addresses right there. You'll find them all there, along with lots of other great features on a wide variety of NASA topics. If you're looking for good conversation about human spaceflight, check out Houston, We Have a Podcast, our weekly show about all aspects of human spaceflight and NASA's missions of exploration. Today, in an all-Gary episode, our Gary Jordan talks with Gary Cox of the Orion program about where the cameras are located on the Orion spacecraft, how they work, and what we'll see back here on Earth with our own eyes when Artemis 1 flies later this year. Go to nasa.gov/podcasts for this week's episode, all the previous episodes too. In fact, the full library of all the NASA podcasts are there, also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. You can get the latest from all over NASA delivered to you every week if you go to nasa.gov/subscribe and sign up for the NASA newsletter.